Welcome to the special guest host series of the Trauma Therapist Podcast, where I'm going to be handing over the mic to some incredible guest hosts. In each episode, you'll hear fresh perspectives and unique insights to inform and inspire you, and all the while, keeping the heart of this podcast alive. So sit back and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be a guest host for the first time on the Trauma Therapist Podcast. And I'm even more excited to have Genevieve Gonzales here. Hi, Genevieve.
Hi. Happy to be here.
So excited to have you. And for those who don't know Genevieve, she's a licensed holistic psychotherapist, board certified hypnotherapist, neuroshamanic medicine practitioner, and the founder of Modern Mind Medicine. She specializes in resolving the painful effects of trauma, heartbreak, and grief through utilizing the power of intention, transformational speech, and gentle hypnotic processes that activate the subconscious and restorative nervous system. Through her session, she creates a safe and comfortable space for people to connect with the healing potential of their own body and mind through bridging the medicine of ancient wisdom and the power of modern day and emotional healing. Again, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that long introduction.
Good. It was perfect. It was perfect. So I have so many questions. I know we don't have a ton of time, but if you could kind of tell us how you got into this work, like what has your journey looked like?
So, like I think most healers, it has to do with an experience that we go through. How I got into the hypnotherapy world is I was already in private practice as a licensed psychotherapist, doing pretty traditional therapy, seeing mostly veterans. So through that, I kind of just inadvertently began to specialize in resolving trauma. Although in the traditional therapy world, I don't know if I was even calling it resolving trauma, it was treating trauma. So a little bit different way that we look at things. And so I would see mostly veterans who had combat trauma, military sexual trauma. Those were pretty much the main issues I would see. And since I started this work, I've always been looking for what works. And I was getting some results, but just not what I was wanting. Like I wanted to see people get really better. So one day I just received a postcard actually for a seminar on resolving sexual trauma through an institute called Rapid Resolution Therapy. And so that's what introduced me to RRT, Rapid Resolution Therapy. And long story short, I went to the first training and saw videos of veterans actually, or first responders who had helped with the cleanup of 9/11, saw them having a session with Dr. John Connolly, the creator of Rapid Resolution Therapy, and seeing them go from visually just completely no color in the face, had very low energy, and within maybe an hour, you could see them just completely uplift, and they say, wow, it's gone. And so I said, okay, there's something to this, so I wanted to learn, and spoke to Dr. John Connolly. He told me to come to the longer training. In between the time that I first was exposed and the time that I went to the first training, me, myself, actually went through a period of very traumatic and intense grief. I had multiple losses within a 6-week period in between these first trainings. Mm-hmm. So, which looking back is pretty serendipitous because it allowed me to experience the power of hypnotherapy, RRT for myself, because then I was now the participant. I was the one that got to experience the changes within the body that can happen almost immediately when somebody's taken into the brainwaves of healing, into the intention of healing, and held in that space, and just to see that you can become unstuck. Because we have the potential to heal. Everything within our body is set up to heal. And that's what I tell my clients. You know, when you cut your finger, how worried are you that it's not going to heal? They're not, right? We're like, oh, that's going to heal. I'm not worried. I don't have to sit there and think about it or do anything about it. But when it comes to emotional stresses or mental or heartbreak, for some reason, we think we're not going to. And that's where that stuckness comes in. So that's where going to a practitioner, a healer, can be really helpful to help release that stuckness by knowing how, by knowing just what things to shift.
Yeah. So, for those listening, like what's kind of the difference between this and conventional talk therapy? Like, why would people choose this route opposed to that?
I think for talk therapy, as someone that's trained in it, as I'm sure you were too, that it can have value. There's some people that do like to talk things out, and they can, work out their problems or come up with a solution through that. They can receive validation. There's a lot of validation in talk therapy, and so some people do need that. With the hypnotherapy realm, we're looking to cause a shift. It's good for someone who's been feeling really stuck, because sometimes the talk therapy can't remove the stuckness. We can find out why, maybe the why, but then not how are we going to now shift it. Where with the hypnotherapy, we're more looking at, okay, how do I solve this, cause a shift, get out of that stuck state? It's okay, the why can be helpful, but it's more of the, okay, but now how, what's going on? How is the mind processing this that's causing this distortion or stuckness? Usually it's a belief. The mind's made meaning out of something. There might be data. So we think of memory as data that's gotten kind of corrupted, and it's being read in a distorted way. And then that's causing a behavior or an emotion. And the thing with talk therapy, or what a lot of people try to do on their own, is they're feeling a certain way, but then they try to shift the way they feel from where they're experiencing it. The conscious mind is where we experience that emotion, but it's the emotions actually being generated from the subconscious, unconscious mind, the limbic system, if we want to get scientific, which is a different level of mind. So what we want to do, if we want to change the emotion, we want to go to where it's being generated, not where the person's feeling it. And so that's how hypnotherapy does that, is by changing states to get into those other layers of mind and then integrate it into all layers so that the person feels this, oh, it's different now. I feel different about it. And it's not that the thing didn't happen, or they're going to lose their memory or anything like that. They can still talk about it, but they're not going to get the same emotional reading at that time. So then it's not a trigger, let's say, or they're able to talk about it like many other forms of data that they've had throughout the day that aren't causing any emotional response that's troubling.
So they're in essence kind of desensitized to it, like they're able to look at it in a more objective way. This happened, it sucked, it was traumatic, and I'm not feeling this visceral somatic response to it where like I did before. Like it doesn't feel as traumatic in the mind, the body, the spirit.
Absolutely. So I like to say they see it with clarity, or see it with an enlightened state. So they'll see it and yes, this thing sucked, but sometimes we can find wisdom from the things that we've overcome, but we can't if we're thinking about how much it sucked, or thinking it happened, how it happened to me, opposed to it happened.
Sure. So post-traumatic growth, right, is a thing.
Yes, yes.
It's hard to see that when you're in tunnel vision because you're in a traumatized state. So you're just in a survival response within the experience. So being able to find where it is in the mind, the body, the spirit, and then integrate it so that you can see it with clarity and understanding and maybe compassion.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And
That's
the brain,
incredible.
Yeah. And I like it. The brain and
It
the brain
works.
that like fear, anger, where those brain waves, those don't, we can't experience, let's say, logic, reason, creativity, inspiration. So we want to get someone into those areas, those brain waves, or where those emotions, the area of the mind where they're able to experience those, because that's where they start to see it with clarity. But
I see.
anger decreases the ability to do that. So that's
Mm.
why by relaxing the nervous system, going through different processes where the conscious mind gets to kind of focus on something and be kind of busy, and then we have access to the subconscious, then through that relaxed state, they're just going into a state that they have already. It's just somebody's helping them to kind of walking along their side, helping them access it.
So it sounds like neuroplasticity at play and how you're accessing the conscious and subconscious, creating new neural pathways. Because for those who don't know, 95% or more of everything we do is subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty wild. So this makes sense. And I know that you'd mentioned like the sessions are a little bit longer, right, than typical talk therapy. Like how does that work? How many sessions does a person need to really see results? What do they generally notice? What can you share about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to do a series of 2 sessions where we're going into these processes, these healing processes, and then 2 follow-up sessions where we'll do some other nervous system rebalancing, and then kind of like a action step plan. Okay, now with all of this freed up energy for you, how do we now implement this for your life? But those 2 first sessions, I tell people to schedule up to 3 hours. Everyone is so different and how responsive they're going to be and what it is that we're shifting for them, that it's hard to say it's going to be this amount of time. But I say, let's schedule 3 hours. It could be shorter than that, but at least we have that time so we can stay in that brain state. Because once you're in it, these transformational brain states, we can start just getting a whole lot done. And the subconscious is very specific. So we want to be specific about what it is that we're shifting. So in an hour session, having to bring somebody into that state and then out, I want to make sure that we're going to get everything resolved, that they're going to feel a shift, feel a difference, feel that something did get done during that time that we have together. So that's why I just want to allow that amount of time.
Okay. And again, how many sessions in total, if for like the average person?
So people will feel a difference in 1.
Okay.
After the first one.
Yeah. So literally sometimes just 1 session and they feel complete. They feel like they don't need to do this any further. So they don't need to see, like say, like if I came to see you, I wouldn't need to see you on like an ongoing basis. Like one time would suffice. That's incredible. And is it usually just for like, let's just say I had multiple traumatic incidents. Would you say I'd need to see you separately for each of those, or could we get it all done in one go?
It's possible to get it all done in one go because, again, if we're having that longer session, then we can kind of do things one by one. But the way our beautiful mind works is it takes information and then applies it to everything that's similar.
Okay.
Which works for us. Sometimes can work against us too, like with trauma. Like, oh, this thing, the firecracker sounds like the bomb, so it can work in that way too. But it also works in beautiful ways with healing because it can take the same thing if we've now applied this new meaning, this lesson, this way of looking at something, and then it can apply it to the other things. But we would do processes to test for that to make sure all of them get cleared up. So that's what I want to do. I want to make sure before the person logs off, they know that there's been a change. So that's why I allow for that time as well.
I was going to ask, this is something you can do virtually and or in person, right?
Yes.
Okay. And is there kind of like an not ideal client, but like a specific person who would seek this modality out over the rest? Is it someone specifically who's feeling stuck in their trauma responses and a dysregulated nervous system? Or is this effective for other people as well for different reasons?
It's effective for pretty much everybody.
Okay.
So me personally, I specialize in trauma resolution, sexual trauma resolution, heartbreak, and grief. Those are my kind of my favorites to shift for people. But it does work with substance abuse as well.
Okay.
It's just not something I specialize in, but it's very, very effective for that.
Okay.
Relapse prevention is what we call it in the RRT world. So
Nice. Okay.
but really, really everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. And then I know we don't have a lot of time, but I had a few more questions. So the neuroshamanic medicine, like, can you just quickly explain? I'm sure people heard that in the beginning and they're like, what is that? I need to know more.
Right. So hypnotherapy and shamanic practices are actually kind of aligned, kind of similar. So the shamanic medicine and practices is a healing method that has to do with intention, using the power or calling in the medicine of either the elements, the earth, different spirits, depending on which culture it is. They all have different ones that they work with, animal spirits, things like that. And practicing that every living being has a medicine to it, and you can call on them for help. So with hypnotherapy, we're using intention as well. And ancient times, there was no way to actually use scientific methods to test what's going on in the brain when these different shamanic medicines are being practiced. But now in the Western world, we are able to test them. And like Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing a lot of work with testing brainwaves and what happens when people are in meditation and going through these healing practices. So neuroshamanism combines the medicine of the ancient world, but also with the research that we can do now. And it's kind of a way to say the Western world and how the Western people are practicing these indigenous medicine practices.
Okay. And does that get intertwined with your RRT work, or is that something separate? Like if someone wanted to work with you, how would that work?
Yeah. So I do pretty much use it with most people. Some are more open than others. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on what's going to be working for them. When I'm working a hypnotic process or a transformational process, let's call it, I'm looking at what's going to cause the shift, and I'm receiving information while I have the intention of where we're going for that person, which we've already agreed on. Mm-hmm. So no one can be taken through a transformational state or hypnotized for something they don't want to do. So we've already agreed on where it is we're going that's in the best and highest good for that person.
Okay.
And so whatever that is, that's what I'm going to receive information to take them there.
Great. That sounds like an amazing guide. So, real quick, just because we are at the end.
Yes.
First, what is one thing you wish to impart for anyone who's listening or watching this right now? If they can walk away with one thing, what is it?
Mm-hmm. That healing doesn't have to take a long time. It doesn't have to be painful. You don't have to relive painful things. Mm-hmm. There are ways to release it without having to relive it in the same way. And it doesn't have to take a long time. We can become unstuck. We can go through the healing. There's going to be other things we have to do in our world, right? Because we live here, but it doesn't have to be long or painful. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. And how can people reach you?
So the best way is to go to modernmindmedicine.com, and then they can go to my contact page and reach out to me there. Also Instagram, also Modern Mind Medicine on Instagram as well.
Amazing. So please do go follow Genevieve. Genevieve, thank you so much for being such a fantastic guest. And
Thank you so much.
I love you, and I love everyone listening. And
yes.
you can heal.
Yes. I love you, my medicine sister.
All right. Take good care.
Thank you. You too.